people in theater want to help people in theater. If you reach out and just ask for general information or people to talk to, they'll do it.
This idea of like, don't be a dick is really important. And if you're not somebody that people want to spend time with and be around, you're not going to get hired very often.
Welcome, Olivia and Philip. Thank you so much for being with us today, and we're excited to dive into this discussion with you. If you could each just give us a little background on yourselves, what you do, where you come from, how you got to be where you are, and then we'll go from there.
So I'm Olivia. I'm Katie's cousin, and I'm a freelance lighting designer. My focus is theater, but occasionally I work in TV and architecture when those jobs come up. I started in the entertainment world in 6th grade, joining my middle school's drama club, kind of accidentally. I did not want to go, but my friend did, so I went with her, and I found a passion. Since then, I followed through with lighting in middle school and high school, and then decided that it was what I wanted to do as a career, so I went to college for it.
My name's Philip. I am also in the entertainment industry, but in a slightly different path. I started doing stage crew in middle school. A friend of mine did it, and I tagged along and enjoyed it, but didn't really take it super seriously. And then in high school, I actually started to do it for real. And then I think freshman or sophomore year of high school, my dad took me to a Trans-Siberian Orchestra concert. If you don't know what that is, they're a combination like heavy metal band and orchestra, and they do specifically like Christmas kind of shows. And they're known for having these really crazy, elaborate productions, crazy light shows, pyro, all this crazy stuff. And so I went with my dad, and I saw that, and I went, cool, that's what I want to do with my life. And so that's what I'm doing with my life. I decided to take it very seriously then moving forward in high school, and that I wanted to go to college for lighting and end up somewhere in the concert world. And here I am.
So it's interesting that the two of you both went to the same college program, and you ended up in such different career paths, really, with Olivia, you being a freelance lighting design, and Philip, you're more on the technical side. So at what point did each of you realize that that's exactly where you wanted to go with it?
I knew I wanted to go the design side since high school, and going to college, we got to experience both design and the technical side of it, and that really solidified my decision based on what I felt most comfortable doing and what excited me the most.
Yeah, I guess I never actually said what I do. I work for a large production company, specifically in their Broadway scene shop, doing set electrics. So if you ever see a theater show and anything in the set lights up in some kind of way, that's what I work on. So I'm the team leader for the set electrics team at that shop. So definitely more on the technical side of things. I thought I wanted to design. I thought I wanted to be more on the design artistic side when I first started. I always knew I was more interested in concert lighting than theater. I mean, for somebody that went to theater school, I don't really like theater at all. So I always knew I was more interested in the entertainment concert side of the world. But after all of the exposure that we had at school in our program, I definitely found myself leaning more towards the actual just technical side, away from the design side of things. And what was really nice, so we went to Carnegie Mellon, which is in Pittsburgh. What's really nice about that program was that they really let us tailor our experience based on what we wanted to do. So they knew I made it pretty clear that I didn't really have a huge interest in the design side of things. So I did sort of the bare minimum design work, and they threw a lot more technical work at me instead, and the opposite for Olivia. So
Yeah.
it actually worked out really nicely because even though we were in the same class, in the same program, we were never really competing for show positions because we didn't want to be doing the same thing.
Yes. We were both the perfect team for shows and also in real life.
Here you are.
Adorable.
How does that play over into your relationship? Like, what I'm so curious, like, what your conversations are like when you come home from work and you're talking about the details of the tech versus the design and what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. What does that look like for you?
I think what's really nice about it is we learned the same things in school. So when he talks about the intricate technical details of stuff he does at work, I know and understand what he's doing. And it's the same when I talk about design. Like, he gets all the small details and annoyances and fun things that I talk about because we have the same knowledge, but we just don't use it every day.
And it being in the same program and doing the same kind of work was also really good relationship-wise, especially in school, because what we did was so time intensive and we had friends who dated outside of the School of Drama, but that was always kind of difficult for people because when we were working on a show, we were working from 6:30 to 10:30 every day of the week, sometimes for weeks on end, and so that could definitely take its toll if you don't understand that that's what you're getting yourself into. And so now that still is true for us. There are times where it's this idea that the show must go on and the show has to get out the door and finish being built. And so if that means overtime for me at work, or that means rehearsals or things don't start until the evening and then run late into the night, we're both used to that kind of thing. So it doesn't bother us.
Yeah, that's cool. I feel like that's something that's very unique to people who work in the same industry. It's difficult when you're, for example, my boyfriend Lance and he's a mechanic and I'm an accountant, and they don't really mix. So neither of us have really any knowledge about the other's career. So it's really cool that you guys get to come home, and even if something went wrong at work and you can come home and talk about that, and you understand each other and you can actually relate. It's not just a empathy perspective. You're really understanding and getting what the other is saying. So it's really cool.
Yeah. If he has a problem at work and maybe can't get to the right conclusion, I could offer advice. And the same with him. We do have this knowledge that we can give each other advice and help push the other and get them to where their work needs to be.
So considering everything that's going on right now, I know, Olivia, obviously you've worked freelance, and Philip, you have a full-time gig, but given the times and COVID and all that your industry has faced, what does that look like for you, and how are you navigating that?
It's definitely been a pretty big adjustment and struggle. I'm very fortunate that I'm still employed. I was furloughed for almost 2 months, but I'm back at work now. But I'm one of all of our friends in the industry. I'm one of a handful that is actually working right now. It's been easier for people who have more full-time jobs, I think. Most of the people that I know that are still employed are full-time, and so their companies and my company have been able to pivot and diversify and adjust to be able to keep people on payroll. But for freelancers like Olivia, it's a lot harder.
Yeah, at this point, my career is basically on pause until I have jobs to apply for.
Because it's not just that, in the arts and in theater, especially in New York, it's a really competitive job market and they're hard to come by. But right now, it's not that they're hard to come by, they just don't exist. There are no jobs to be had. by anybody. Doesn't matter how good you are, doesn't matter the experience you have. Broadway is right now closed until at least January, which means pretty much all theater in New York, even off-Broadway, is closed until at least January. And the entertainment industry as a whole is going to be one of the last to reopen, because until you can fill a theater full of people safely, no theater is going to reopen.
Being freelance before COVID is already kind of last minute jobs and a little risky and a struggle to get work and keep work and not have too much downtime. But now during COVID, basically everything is downtime because there's nowhere for me to go work. This time has been nice to not be putting myself at risk and not having to go into work, but I'd much rather be at work than stuck inside all the time.
So how is your perspective going forward for each of you in your careers? How has it changed what you might be doing, when that might be happening, or what the potential is? What's the uncertainty level?
Pretty high, I'd say. At this point, I can't really make much of a guess on what I'll be doing a year from now because I just don't know what will be happening in the world a year from now.
Yeah.
The other concern is once things do open, there's going to be a lot of people in this industry all going for the same jobs. So even once we can apply for jobs, how the demand for jobs will be and how many people can get work, and who knows where that will be. So at this point, it's just hoping things open, hoping work comes my way, and hoping it's all moving forward and progressing.
Yeah, and I'm again more fortunate to be full-time employed and also at a very large company that things are there's some amount of uncertainty just with how things progress, and that they're going to have to keep the staffing level pretty low moving forward, and if we run out of jobs to work on, then there's a good chance that I could get furloughed again. I think the odds of the company going under are not very high, but there are lots of small production companies who don't have that certainty. The president of the company sent out an email this past week to furloughed employees, which I was still on the list for apparently, even though I'm back at work. That was like, I'm not gonna sugarcoat this. Things don't look very good. So that's just sort of the reality. And I'm lucky that my specific branch of the company is able to pivot and work on other types of projects, because we're essentially a kind of a manufacturing facility. Like we build sets for Broadway, and that's mostly what we do, but we can do other things. We have the capability to do other kinds of work. And so we're actually one of the only locations that is staffed by more than a handful of people right now. And we're still only at, a quarter capacity as far as people on the shop floor go. But that's 20 more people than are anywhere else at any other location in the company. So as long as we're still able to continue to find more diverse work to do, we'll probably be okay. I don't have as much uncertainty with my career path as Olivia does at the moment.
So in moving forward with your vision for your life and your career, has all of this uncertainty that you guys are feeling in the industry in general, has that made you rethink your career path totally at all? Or are you just kind of like, I'm going to wait and see how this plays out? Where are you in that process right now?
More wait and see how this plays out, keeping hope. I mean, if I had to...
So to have to even think about that, I'm sure is difficult.
I think the last time I had like a different career in mind, I was 12. So there isn't even this kind of like backup job that I've always wanted. This is the job I've always wanted. And I'm not ready to give up on it yet just because I can't work right now.
Yeah, and you shouldn't. You shouldn't think so. That's good. Hold the hope.
Yeah, what like helps you stay positive, and how have you coped with that along the way and through all of this, and keep staying positive about the fact that, you know, the future is coming and there will be, you know, a time where things go back to at least somewhat normal. What's kept you going through all of it?
Well, I think even though people write off the arts and don't give it enough credit for what it is, it's everywhere. It's so prominent, and I don't think that it'll disappear even after this long pause. So knowing that whenever this ends, it will still be there is kind of the hope.
Right. Yeah, I mean, what you said is really true. People don't realize how much all of this stuff goes into so many things that we all just take for granted. You don't realize, like, every TV show you watch and every, you know, billboard in the city and, like, literally everything everywhere has to do with what you guys do. It's all over the place.
That's what's been kind of frustrating in terms of the, like, response to the epidemic and all of this, is that people are very quick to write off the arts. You know, arts are the first thing that get cut when funding gets cut to places. But if you look in terms of, like, the economy as a whole, arts and entertainment is a massive part of the economy. I mean, we're talking billions of dollars and, I don't know, probably hundreds of thousands, millions of jobs, because it's not just the actors and the writers. There's so many arts adjacent jobs that are impacted by this. Like in New York City, you look at Broadway, we're not just talking about, oh, the actors on stage, you're talking about all of the staff that operate those theaters, you're talking about all of the, like, delis and bodegas on Broadway that now have no clientele anymore because they were so busy by all of these people working on Broadway, and that the arts needs help. The arts needs to be bailed out, like all these other industries that are getting bailed out, because, you know, this idea of, like, starving artists is really true. And there's a ton of people that just can't make ends meet right now and won't be able to for a long time because there aren't any jobs to be had. And unless you want to say, well, all these people need to, you know, go work retail for the next however many months it takes before it's safe to go back to their normal jobs, like, that's not realistic. So
yeah, and you see that defunding of the arts everywhere. I mean, even just going back to high school, every time the school district had a budget up for vote, it was music program was the first thing to go. Music and theater, and there's going to be no more musicals and all this stuff. And it's like we had to fight for it every single time. There's so many, I feel like, students that, like you guys, who find a passion in it and go to college for it, and all they see is, like, the fact that it gets defunded all the time. There's like no money, you're not going to make any money. And so many people I knew going to school had that drilled into their heads of, you know, I'm going to school for music because I love it, but I'm not going to make any money, and I'm just going to be broke forever. But this is what I love, so I'm going to do it anyway. And, you know, I feel like the fact that we constantly defund the arts is what contributes a lot to that, because they're not made to feel like there's a place for them or there's, you know, anything out there. But there's so much out there. It's everywhere. And it's, you know, obviously, like you said, a competitive market, and there is struggle there, but there's still so many opportunities.
Definitely. Yeah. And it is a little bit, when you're starting out, a starving artist situation. You know, I know a lot of people in the arts who have to have second jobs, but eventually things become more steady and you work more regularly and you don't need a second job, and this can be a full-time career for people.
What would be your best piece of advice for those people who are just starting out in this industry? How do you make it? How do you figure out how to plan your financial lives and, you know, work through those difficult times of maybe struggling a little bit financially at first and working the 2 jobs and figuring out your day-to-day in order to thrive in this industry?
Yeah, that's a tough one for sure. I mean, we're in a very fortunate position that I knew I never wanted to be freelance. I looked at that you're always looking for your next job. When you're working the job you're working, but you're always looking forward at the next job, the next 2-3 jobs, the rest of your year, to know that you're going to get enough money to be able to, you know, afford to live. And I looked at that and went, yeah, that's not for me. We had a class called professional prep senior year, and there was a day that the professors asked, like, what do you want to get out of your career? What do you want to be doing? And there was a lot of people that said, I want to make cool art with interesting people. I want to make meaningful art that promotes change. And I want a desk and benefits and a paycheck and a salary. I've been, in terms of that world, I'm an outlier because I knew I never wanted to go down that path. So it puts us in a very fortunate position because Olivia's been able to really pursue her dreams because I have a steady income.
Right. So we're lucky in that we haven't really had to be starving artists. But if you are a starving artist, I think it's just a matter of planning as much as you can and saving and kind of working the grind until you don't have to anymore.
And I guess the thing is that there are, it's hard to get to the point where there is not a grind anymore, because we know very successful people in all different facets of the industry who still work like, I don't know, 300 days out of the year, more than that. I mean, they work all the time. And that's actually kind of what being successful for a lot of people is that they're always busy because they're in demand.
Have you guys thought about like reworking your resumes or anything? You mentioned briefly before that it's going to be very competitive when things do start picking up again. And if we do go back to that normal world and that normal pace of work, what that will look like for you as far as competition is, I'm sure, a little bit intimidating. So have you taken on any tricks or anything that you've done to help yourself be considered higher in a more competitive situation?
At this point, I think it's going to just be about writing the best kind of cover letter you can to sell yourself, so that people will actually take the time to look at your resume and look at your portfolio to show what your work is. Yeah, I think, because I can't really make more work than what I already have or change my resume because there's nothing new to add to it. It's just about selling yourself in the best way possible so that people find you desirable. And it's also about all the connections you already have and people who know you, and using those connections to help you get more work and talk to the right people.
Yeah, I mean, you guys, I know going to Carnegie Mellon, you guys came out with so many connections from that. What's your advice for somebody, whether going to Carnegie Mellon or any other school, for putting yourself out there and making those connections?
It sounds scary, but like the cold email is your best friend. Just email professionals, and even with a large alumni connection from Carnegie Mellon, I just emailed anybody who would give me their email when we met them at like showcases or other events, or getting a name from somebody else and just emailing them and seeing if they have any work for you, if they have any advice for you. 9 times out of 10, these people responded and were nice and wanted to help you because they were there. They get it. Even now, like people Philip works with have connections to lighting designers and people on Broadway and off Broadway who are like, oh yeah, like I'll connect Olivia, like not a problem. So this industry in general, I think, is very caring for the most part, especially when you're reaching out to people who aren't going for the same jobs as you. like they want to help you. They want to see you do well, and they want to see you make it.
Yeah, one of the things about this industry is it's very much about who you know and who you have good professional working or personal relationships with. That this idea of like, don't be a dick is really important, because it's not just you're sitting in these rooms with these people you're working with sometimes for hours and hours and hours in a row, and if you're not somebody that people want to spend time with and be around, you're not going to get hired very often. There's a point where you hit a level of success where you can afford to be that way, because they'll hire you anyway because your work is so good. But especially when you're first starting out, you definitely don't have that, that leeway. So it is a lot of, it's about personality and being somebody that, not just being talented. I mean, it's important to be good at what you do, but it's also important to be personable.
Right. If person A and person B are both equally good at a job, but person A is, nice to be around and personable and easy to talk to and easy to work with, they're going to get the job over person B. And even if you're rude to the people who are not the people who are going to hire you, if I work with a scenic designer who's a jerk, and down the road I'm on another job and they're like, oh, we're looking to hire a scenic designer, this person applied, I'd be like, oh, don't hire them. So you want to be nice to everybody around you, because you never know who's going to know somebody who knows somebody. For it being a really big industry, it's an incredibly small world. I worked on a show in China, and one of the people on that show had worked with my best friend in LA, and it's like, so you never know who knows who. So, and that's it. You don't want to talk bad about anybody on any show, because they might be friends with them, and then that could make you look bad.
Carry over.
I feel like that's, good life advice in general. A lot of times you don't realize how many people know people. It's like the 6 degrees of separation, something like that.
Yeah.
Where, no matter who it is, they're no more than like 7 connections away from you. So you never know who you're talking to, or, people say it all the time. It's a small world. Weird things happen, and you run into somebody that knows someone who knows someone, and maybe you talk bad about them one day, and that's gonna, come back to bite you. So
yeah, you got to be good wherever you go.
Yeah.
It's funny that you say that, and like, we're in New York. I just think about people who will listen to this who are coming from a small town where literally everybody knows everybody, and that's day-to-day life. But it's true in the big cities as well. So yeah. So you guys mentioned before making it in your industry, when we were talking about, when you're starting out and this and that and the other thing. How do you really define making it in this industry? Is it financial success? Is it building your portfolio to a certain extent? Is it a culmination of a lot of different things for you? What does that mean to you?
I think for everybody in our industry, making it probably means something a little different. For some people, making it might mean Broadway. For other people, making it might just mean steady work regardless of, what level theater it's in. And I think for me, it's the second. I just want to be doing theater regularly enough that it pays the bills. And at this point, I don't care where I do theater or what show I'm working on. I'm happiest when I'm in a theater, and that's what I want to be doing.
Yeah, I guess my making it is definitely different than that. Maybe a combination. I don't really want to say it's financial, because if you want to make a lot of money, and we sort of touched on this before, like if you want to be making a lot of money, being in theater and like this side of the entertainment industry, you're in the wrong place. Because even being successful doesn't necessarily mean you're wealthy or making all that much money. For me, what I really am interested in is, I guess maybe it's more like reputation, that I want people to know who I am in this part of the industry that we work in. Like, oh, we're doing X and Y, or we're having a problem with X and Y. Oh, call Philip. He'll sort it out, like that kind of thing. That would, for me, I think that's the more realistic measure of success.
Makes sense. That's pretty cool. When you can be called in to do things and you're the expert when you reach that point in your career and people turn to you for things, it's got to be a good feeling.
Yeah, coming out of school, or between junior and senior year, I had a really great internship that I would say kind of changed my trajectory that I wanted to be going down. I wanted to do concerts. I thought I wanted to tour. I did a very small tour at the end of my time in school. At the end of I actually left school a month or so early to go on tour with the blessing of the faculty. They were the one that said, hey, this opportunity came up from an alum. You should go do this. We'll take care. We'll sort out the details. Go for it. So I did tour. I did a small tour, and I went, okay, cool. This was a lot of fun. It was a bus and trailer tour, so we were the whole band and the crew. We were all on a tour bus. We went from coast to coast. It was a great time, and I went, this is great. This was a lot of fun. I could never live my life like this, and I don't. This is not what the path for me. That was before. When I really thought I wanted to tour seriously, that was before I was in a committed long-term relationship. And the people that tour spend tons and tons of time, spend most of their time away from home. And that was not something I was really interested in anymore. So I had this internship between junior and senior year, and I found this kind of niche part of the industry that was more on the support side. So I'm not out there designing shows. I'm not out there the technician working on a specific show. I'm more interested in the part of the industry that is supporting those people. So what I do now is not exactly down that road, but it's more in that direction, that I help install this equipment, and so I'm the one that knows how the system works. So when this leaves our shop and gets installed into a theater, or is on a Broadway tour that's going across the country, if there's issues with it, I know the ins and outs of it, and I can help solve any problems that might come up. So my trajectory definitely changed throughout school as I had these other experiences and saw these other parts of the industry that I wasn't aware of before.
And I think that's pretty crazy. We went to school for the same thing, and we're in two very different career paths. But there was also two other people who were in our class who went to school who both went in the lighting design program, who are also doing two different things from each other and from us. So arts and entertainment is this crazy world where there's so many opportunities in every section of it that you just don't even realize exist.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes the arts and entertainment industry gets this one color painted on it of people think you have to be this overly creative type person who, it just fits this one mold. And the reality is there's so many options out there. I mean, just knowing the two of you, you're similar in certain ways, but you're very different people. And you have very different personalities. And I think it's important to realize that no matter, and this is not even just speaking to the arts industry, it's anything. It's going to school for something or having a certain major doesn't pigeonhole you. It only opens up opportunities to find out what you can do in different industries. So I feel like that kind of takes the pressure off too when it comes to making a decision about a major. Sometimes you just have to go with your gut, and whatever you decide coming out of high school, just, stick with it and look for the opportunities and look for the different things that you can use it for, because at the end of the day, there's a reason why you had that gut instinct to go for that industry or that major. There's a place for you there. You just have to find it.
Definitely. And ours at Carnegie Mellon, the program we were in, is extra great at that and allowing students to figure out exactly what they want to do. For the first year and a half when we were at school, we did not get to be lighting designers. We were design and production students, and we got to experience all aspects of design and production. We worked as scenic designers and shop technical people and costumes, and we got to experience all the parts of theater and really figure out which aspect of design and production you wanted to continue on in.
And I think we learned a lot of skills that are applicable to other industries that you can go to school for theater and apply a lot of those same things that we learned to a lot of other places. And when I was in high school, I think my senior year, we had a bunch of alums who were in stage crew at that high school. They all came back, and they were all, they'd been out of high school for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And it was interesting to see that there were a couple that had gone on to actually do theater professionally, but most hadn't. But that the skills that they, even in high school doing theater, that they learned helped them later on in their life and their career. I mean, a huge part of what we learn is management skills, problem-solving skills, which are all applicable to a lot of other fields. So you can definitely take this education and apply it elsewhere if you decide that maybe theater isn't the direction you want to go.
So knowing what you know now, what would be some advice you would give to maybe someone that isn't going to a school who's as great as Carnegie Mellon at giving you the exposure to everything? What kind of advice would you give for them to get that exposure without being forced into it? What would you advise them to do and to ask for and to fight for?
I think what is nice, and again, this is from looking at it from the technical point of view, there's lots of resources to be able to learn new skills and things like that without necessarily being hands-on with equipment or situations like that. There's tons of resources out there, and it means that you're going to have to sit there and read a book and read a lot of technical jargon, but that's a way to build knowledge and build skills there. But other than that, finding internships, finding opportunities that maybe are slightly outside of what you thought you wanted to do, or more in line potentially with what you want to do than maybe whatever program you're in.
And I think just maybe talking to people, if you want to do theater and you're just not sure what part of theater you want to do, like I said earlier, people in theater want to help people in theater. If you reach out to any of the theater schools or theaters that have internship programs and just ask for general information or people to talk to, they'll do it. When we were at school, there were a lot of high school students that we got connected with to talk to them about our program and talk to them about what we're doing. And some of them chose to apply and attend, and others chose not to based on what we said. And I think most theater programs would be willing to do that for students. So if you're in high school and you don't know exactly what you want to do in theater, reach out to the theater schools and they'll probably help guide you.
There's also leveraging connections that you may have, and even what Olivia was talking about with cold emails, that maybe there are people that you get in touch with who say, look, I can't do anything for you, but I'm happy to, if we're local, grab coffee and just talk about the industry in general. I mean, people in entertainment and in theater are generally fairly outgoing and willing to talk about their experiences, I think.
Are there any resources or virtual communities you guys have used or know about that someone in this industry could benefit from using or just gain access to easily?
Yeah, there's things like there's a tech theater subreddit or a lighting design subreddit, if you're into Reddit. There's also a lot of, again, not just technical, but also design resources looking at manufacturers. So like there are companies like ETC, which if you're interested in theater probably means something to you, but it's a huge company, like industry standard in equipment and things like that. And they have a ton of online resources. Like I think just now they put up a bunch of stuff about Hamilton, like actually with the design team from Hamilton. So not just, so like podcast kind of stuff, webinars, but also actual materials from the show to allow people to like virtually play around with the lighting rig that was used and things like that. So especially, actually more so now than ever, I think, with the situation in the world, there are more and more resources available online to be able to continue your education than there ever have been before.
I feel like something we touched upon a little bit, but can kind of circle back to is the pressure that a lot of people feel when going through that senior year of high school or even the senior year of college and going out into the world. And what you said about having those programs that go to high schools and talk about in different industries and different careers, I think those things can be so useful because a lot of times, I mean, even myself going through my senior year of high school was a huge struggle and making that decision of what I wanted to do. And I mean, you two seem to have a good idea, coming through all of it, where you wanted to go. But I think you both had really good guides, and I think that speaks to having access to a lot of knowledge and, having those programs that have the alumni come back and speak and give you an idea of what's out there. I think it's so important to anyone going through a change like that to have some sort of guidance and some sort of, somebody who's gone through it coming back. So I think it's something that we need a lot of in the world in general, is just people who are willing to go through what they've gone through and then look back and help the next person behind them. And I think that really makes things so much easier. It takes a little pressure off because a lot of times, I mean, coming out of high school or coming out of college, you don't know what's next. You haven't experienced it yet. So to be able to talk to somebody who has been through it and can give you advice on what is coming down the line and what to expect moving forward is so important.
Definitely. Our school, Carnegie Mellon, when you're seniors, they have what they call showcase. And part of it is for the students to display their work and make connections with professionals, but the other part of it is for people who are recent graduates to longtime graduates to talk about what it's been like for them since graduation and what they did and how they made it and survived and where they lived and just tips and tricks to get through it all.
Yeah, I mean, I think for a lot of our friends, the first jobs that a lot of people have gotten out of school were because of connections with alums. We were pretty close with a bunch of the upperclassmen when we were freshmen, and they're now, they're only a couple years out of school longer than us, but they are already successful enough to be able to start giving back. And then also, alums that were further out that came back to talk to us or give like lectures, guest speakers, or things like that. My first job out of school was actually a freelance thing, was not a full-time or anything like that. And that was because an alum who we'd become friends with was working on a show somewhat local to where it was in Boston. And so he reached out and said, hey, like, I'm looking for an assistant. Are you interested? Yeah, of course. I'd love to, go work with them, join the team. So that was how that first job came about. And I think that's true for a lot of people. I would love to be able to give back like that too. I'm not in a place in my career where I could really do that at this point. But, I guess that would be another measure of success for me, is I would love the chance to have a reason to be brought back as an alum to give a guest lecture or talk about what I do, and then be able to form those same kind of connections with current students and then maybe be able to help them out as well.
Absolutely. And I think there's really something to be said about looking at yourself in that way and trying to kind of piece together in your mind, like, what can I give back, instead of just like, oh, little old me, like I'm just starting out my career. Like, I feel like sometimes that's the time where you're most valuable to people who are about to graduate, because you were just in their shoes. And if you have a little something that could give them a connection to an internship, or I don't know, like someone that they can speak to, or anything, whether it seems small or big to you, it might be life-changing for them. So being able to look at yourself in a way that's elevated and successful and you're proud of yourself is definitely important as well.
Yeah, I think unfortunately with the state of the world at the moment, it's hard to give any concrete advice to people right now for what to do, because everything is just such an unknown. And anybody coming out of school right now, I can't imagine being in this position. It's a super tough spot to be in, regardless of what industry you're trying to work in.
Yeah, definitely.
I can't imagine if I was just graduating. I don't know. I just feel like during that time you're so excited to get a job and to work and to do whatever it is that you've been working towards for all these years, and now the world is just like in turmoil, and of what you were thinking about is really of high matter to what's going on anymore. So it's unfortunate, but I don't know. We all got to figure out how to navigate around that, I guess.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about how you guys just moved and through all of this, and, you had to postpone your weddings.
So straight out of school, we moved to New Jersey to be near the city for the opportunity for me to work on Broadway, but to work in New York theaters. But Philip knew that what he wanted to do in the technical side, a lot of the shops and warehouses and distribution centers for all of the equipment and everything is based in New Jersey. So we chose to live in New Jersey.
Over some amount of objection from you as
yes. Being from Long Island, living in New Jersey was, kind of really hard to stomach. But by the time we graduated, we had been a couple for about 3 years. So there had to be a little give and take, I guess. And then we lived in New Jersey for 3 years. And then when Philip got this new job, his office was actually in upstate New York. So it was about an hour and 20 minutes north of where we lived. So we had always planned on moving when our lease was up, and then COVID happened, and that made moving a little bit more challenging and definitely an interesting experience finding an apartment in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, and while all that was going on, I got in touch with the GM of our office, and I said, hey, he knew that I was thinking of moving anyway. And I had to reach out to him, and I said, hey, look, I know you don't have a crystal ball either, but is there any reason not to do this right now? And thankfully he said, no, go for it. We want to bring you back whenever the earliest opportunity arises for us to do that. Because I was furloughed at that point, right in the middle, which actually worked out kind of nicely because it made the moving process actually a lot easier because I was home.
After packing up our apartment, which is only a 1-bedroom apartment, you wouldn't think it would be that bad. We had so much stuff, and I am so glad I didn't have to do it alone. It was definitely an interesting experience moving during a pandemic because we had to find an apartment without actually seeing any apartments and only doing virtual tours, and that's kind of weird because you don't get the real feel of a place without being in it. And so now we live in Nanuet, New York, which is about 15 minutes over the Jersey border. So it cuts his commute in half and then about triples my commute into the city. But for the time being, I don't have to go there anyway.
And through all of this other stuff going on, you were also planning a wedding.
Yes, we were. So we got engaged in March of 2018 and had planned our wedding to be this September on our 6-year anniversary. And, a pandemic happened and gatherings of wedding size just were not realistic. And we have a lot of guests that would be coming from out of town and at-risk guests. And we made the decision to postpone, which was the right decision, but it was very, very hard to actually get there. For a long time, I just kept saying, we're 99% sure, because that last 1% was a struggle.
Yeah, it's hard when you're so excited about something and you do all of this planning and it's so many months and, there's so many things that go into it and you really you're pouring your heart into it because it's such a important day and then to have something like this, I feel like it's happening everywhere.
Yeah.
We have known at least 4 people who've had to postpone weddings now, and it's just crazy that something that's supposed to be so monumental in your life, and now it's really I feel like giving everyone a chance to strip it down and get back to what the day is about too. And you guys will be still getting married on the day of your wedding, right?
Yes, we are. And it's kind of a little silver lining. Part of me is looking forward to having this day that's a little smaller and more intimate and then waiting to celebrate. It was hard to get to that place of acceptance and seeing it as a silver lining. But I think it is, and main goal is for us to be married, and we still get to do that, and that's what's important. We're pretty fond of this guy, so.
We are too.
Aww.
All right, well, thank you so much, Olivia and Philip, for being with us today. Thank you for being so open and discussing all of these things with us and really giving our guests look into your life.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have gotten to be here.
Can you just tell our listeners where they can find you, social media, any websites or anything?
Sure. I have a website that is olivialeverde.com that showcases all of my work. I'm also on Instagram at CueTheLights, CUE the lights.
And you can't really find me anywhere. So.
You'll find LinkedIn and you'll find Philip.
If you talk to me, I can talk to Philip.
That is another difference between our trajectories and our jobs, is that for her, getting herself out there is really important. For me, not so much.
Oh, there it is. Well, thank you guys again so much for joining us today. It's been so great chatting with you. And we'll be looking forward to talking to you again soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.